Hey guys, tonight we're going to follow the surprisingly adventurous life of a pair of Roman sandals. Not just any sandals, mind you. This pair's seen more empires, elbows, and olive pits than most generals. You'll ride the roads of empire, dodge camels, and maybe, just maybe, discover what garum actually smells like. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this journey unless your feet are made of leather and your patience is infinite. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You were born in Antioch, sometime in the 2nd century CE, in a city that smells like roasted chickpeas, sun-baked stone, and wet wool. A hub on the Silk Road and a hinge between East and West, Antioch hums with sandals like you. Only you've got that little something extra. Maybe it's your double-stitched heel strap. Maybe it's the soft goatskin lining, or maybe it's the fact that your craftsman, let's call him Lucius, was only half paying attention because his apprentice had just knocked over a jar of lamp oil. Lucius works in a workshop that's more shaded awning than building, where flies hum in the air and scraps of leather cling to the dust like sleeping cats. You're formed slowly, your soles traced, cut, soaked, then sun-dried until stiff, holes punched with the practiced rhythm of boredom, straps threaded and tied in a way that whispers functional, not fashion-forward. You're not made for a senator's stroll. You're built for marching. Your first owner isn't much to look at. Publius, a mid-ranking officer with a tendency to mutter to himself, and an unfortunate rash under one armpit. He's tall, slightly bow-legged, and smells permanently of vinegar-soaked lentils. But his feet? Surprisingly dainty. You'll spend the next few months intimately close with them. He collects you from Lucius on a sweltering Tuesday morning, the kind of day where even the dogs lie down and give up. His old sandals have finally blown out after one too many temple steps, and he's in the market for something that won't split on a goat path. Lucius promises that you'll hold up for at least a year of moderate use. Publius narrows his eyes and asks what moderate means. Lucius shrugs. Not dying in the desert, he says. They both laugh. You do not. Publius slaps you on like you're already broken in and begins walking immediately. None of that softly breaking in the leather nonsense. Every cobblestone in Antioch registers under your soul like an insult. Still, you cling on, gripping his calloused feet like a soldier grabbing a shield. You pass spice traders yelling prices in 3 languages. A group of boys toss pebbles into a dried-out fountain. A camel sneezes directly into the back of your left heel. Welcome to Rome? Historians still argue whether sandals like you were standardized or tailored, whether the empire preferred uniformity or gave each foot its own tiny chariot. Based on Lucius's workshop, it's safe to say a bit of both. You're custom in the way that a sponge is custom, flexible, mildly damp, and destined to be forgotten in a corner. By the end of your first week, you've walked a full 20 Roman miles. That's 30 kilometers in case your ancient math is a little rusty. Your leather's beginning to soften. You squeak less. You've even survived a near miss with a chamber pot tossed from a 2nd-story window. That sort of reflex sharpens you. You become intimately familiar with Antioch's layered terrain. stone, sand, grit, the occasional mystery goo near the forums. You learn the subtle difference between bathhouse runoff and donkey urine. You learn that children, when bored, will try to step directly on your toes. You also learn that Publius picks his toenails while thinking, which is neither helpful nor hygienic. By the end of the month, you've been splashed with wine, stepped on by a donkey, and brushed clean by a prostitute who mistook you for a different pair. You've also been complimented by a passing centurion who calls out, "Nice straps," in Latin, then immediately walks into a pillar. You feel you're not just a pair of sandals anymore. You're now a member of the Roman military's logistical dreamscape, a walking cog in an empire obsessed with roads, supply lines, and efficiency. Your days of fishy festivals and decorative scars are behind you. Now come the long roads, the desert winds, and the first real test of whether Lucius's half-distracted craftsmanship can withstand 1,000 kilometers of rock, heat, and poor navigation. But for now, you settle against the stone-paved via leading out of Antioch, already warming under the morning sun. You flex slightly with every step. Publius hums a marching tune off-key, and just ahead, a dog raises one leg by a milestone. It's going to be a very, very long journey. You leave Antioch at dawn. The air's still cool, the sky just starting to shift from bruised purple to a bleached-out yellow. There's dew in the grass, grit in the air, and your left strap is already threatening mutiny. But off you go, wrapped around Publius's feet as he joins a small cohort of soldiers heading toward Palmyra, a bustling oasis city that's part trade hub, part political powder keg. Palmyra sounds glamorous, but to you, it's just one more dot on a map of places you'll be ground into. The road is long and hot. Every day blends into the next. Walk, eat, make camp, repeat. You quickly learn to recognize the difference between silence and boredom. Publius does this thing with his toes when he's thinking. He wiggles them in rhythm, tapping against your insole like he's sending secret sandal Morse code. You're not sure what he's saying, but it's probably something like, "I should have bought the ones with arch support." Mainstream history tends to focus on Rome's roads as marvels of engineering, which is fair. They're straight, solid, and wildly efficient. But historians still argue whether these roads were designed with foot traffic comfort in mind or just fast troop deployment. Based on the way your soles grind against gravel from dawn till dusk, you suspect it was the latter. The first few days are filled with a strange sort of optimism, new territory, cool morning breezes, even the occasional shaded rest stop. But then comes the desert stretch. The grass fades to scrub, the wind shifts from playful to punishing, sand replaces stones, and suddenly everything tastes like grit. There's a moment on day 5 when you're halfway up a sunbaked hill and Publius stops mid-step. The squad's been marching for hours, and the sun is punishing. Everyone's sweating, swearing, and silently calculating how far it is to the next whale. Publius lifts his foot, leans on one knee, and examines you with mild betrayal. His heel is raw. Your strap has rubbed a spot so red it practically glows. Does he blame the terrain? His socks? The imperial military's complete lack of foot care training? Of course not. He blames you. You get a half-hearted tug and a muttered curse. A strip of linen is added between your strap and his foot. This does approximately nothing. But it makes him feel better, and that, apparently, is what counts. One evening, you arrive at a caravan rest stop. Not a military outpost, but a patch of civilization cobbled together from canvas tents and half-buried amphorae. Here, spice traders and goat herders mingle under low lantern light. Children run around barefoot, chasing chickens with the confidence of tiny demigods. You lie near the fire while Publius sips from a dented cup and argues with another officer about whether Palmyra's queen is ambitious or just dangerously smart. You're not sure, but based on the number of caravans carrying silk, perfumes, and carefully caged parrots, she's definitely onto something. A camel lurches too close to the fire and sends a splash of wine onto your heel. Publius swears. You smell faintly of cloves for the rest of the week. Camels, by the way, are not sandal-friendly creatures. They drool, they step sideways without warning. They regard everything, including you, with disdain. There's a moment when one ambles a little too close, raises its front leg, and, without breaking eye contact, steps directly onto you. You survive. Barely. The next day, you pass a group of local shepherds who navigate the dry, thorny landscape by the sound of their sheep's bells. The jingling echoes across the rocks like laughter, and for a brief moment you almost forget your straps are slowly trying to. Night falls. The desert cools faster than expected. Publius curls up with his cloak over his head, and you lie by the fire, barely steaming. A nearby centurion pokes at his blistered foot with a stick, muttering that his sandals were made by a blind donkey. You bristle slightly at the insult, even though he's not talking about you. Somewhere in the distance a jackal yips. Someone sings a tune from northern Gaul, and someone else yells at him to shut up. Stars crackle above, infinite and uncaring. Your straps loosen over time. The leather thins at the toe. You start to pick up little pebbles that wedge themselves between sole and foot like gossip. You try not to take it personally. A few more days pass. You reach a low ridge that overlooks the wide, green-skirted basin of Palmyra. It doesn't look like much from this distance, just a smudge of tan and palm trees, but you can sense the relief ripple through the soldiers like cool water. Civilization means proper food. Proper food means less lentil mush. And less lentil mush means less chance of it being spilled on you. You descend the ridge slowly. Publius's limp is more pronounced. Your left strap is now tied with a bit of twine scavenged from a saddlebag. Your once proud heel flattened. You are, in short, no longer battle-ready. You are barely functional. But you made it. Palmyra rises around you like a mirage made real, columns, bazaars, sun-bleached temples, and the smell of citrus and camel. You cross into the city gates and feel the cobbled stones beneath your sole shift from harsh and dusty to oddly warm and smooth. You've earned this. You're ready to rest. And then Publius walks you directly into a pile of donkey manure. You arrive in Palmyra coated in dust, donkey manure, and a lingering smell of old lentils. Frankly, you've looked better, but who hasn't after a 2-week desert march? Your soles are thinner, your straps crusted with salt, and your right insole now bears a suspicious scorch mark from that one night too close to the campfire. Still, you're here, alive, mostly intact, and still clinging to Publius's increasingly irritable feet. Palmyra doesn't waste time being modest. It's loud, colorful, and layered with the scent of civilization. Incense, dates, roasted meat, something vaguely floral, and just a hint of camel. Merchants shout in Aramaic, Greek, and Latin. Bronze bells jingle from awnings. Everywhere people hustle. traders from India hawking pepper, Parthians selling silk, Roman officials bickering over taxes. You clomp along cobbled streets that feel absurdly luxurious after the desert. Smooth stones, actual drainage, even the occasional fig squished underfoot. It's a spa day by your standards. Your cohort makes camp outside the city walls, setting up near a dusty olive grove where the wind smells of sap and bureaucratic exhaustion. You, however, are in for a rare treat. Publius is given leave to spend 2 nights within the city. That means an inn, a bed, possibly a bath. You don't hold out hope for soap. The inn is modest, a crumbling 2-story affair with cracked tiles, peeling frescoes, and a distinctly judgmental cat on the windowsill. Publius removes you with a groan, tosses you toward a corner, and sighs, as if he's just laid down the weight of the world. You land on a woven mat beside a pair of embroidered slippers clearly meant for someone with considerably daintier ankles. New? One slipper whispers. Dessert-worn, you mutter back, trying to ignore the smell of your own straps. There's a moment of silence, followed by the slipper's gentle observation. You reek of camel. Publius, meanwhile, is off soaking his feet in a wooden basin, while the innkeeper's daughter tries not to gag. You hang in your corner, semi-damp and slightly offended. Later that night, you accompany him reluctantly to the baths. Palmyra's public baths aren't as grand as Rome's, but they have one thing going for them: proper mosaics. You're left outside, of course, abandoned in a pile with other tired footwear. For a brief moment, you enjoy the sun-warmed stone beneath your sole, and then someone accidentally kicks you into a puddle. This, you realize, is your life now. Puddle. Dust. Repeat. The next morning, Publius dresses in his good tunic, restraps you with extra care, and heads into the central forum. He's got orders to deliver, scrolls tucked under his arm, dust on his hem, and his usual muttering about how this entire city smells like figs and lies. While he negotiates with a scribe who refuses to look up from his stylus, you meet the city's true royalty, the sandals of a Palmyrene priest. They are magnificent, gold-stitched, fringed with tiny blue beads. The soles barely touch the ground as their owner glides across the plaza like an incense-scented cloud. You feel vaguely embarrassed by your cracked straps and stitched heel, your utility, their divine runway. But here's the thing, you've survived more than they ever will. Sure, they sparkle, but they've never eaten grit or dodged camel hooves or limped through a windstorm wrapped in firewood twine. You've earned every scuff. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers truly respected local cultures or merely tolerated them. Judging by the way Publius squints at a Palmyrene temple with half interest and zero understanding, the answer might be somewhere in the middle, but mostly not. He's more focused on finding lunch, which leads you into a market buzzing with chaos. The spice cellar has something that smells like crushed heaven. A bread vendor tries to upsell Publius on flatbread infused with desert wind, which turns out to be stale. There's a woman balancing 5 baskets of grapes on her head, walking past with the elegance of a parade float, and there, tucked behind the wine-sour air of a tavern, a man selling old knives, old charms, and, of all things, old shoes. You glance toward a battered pair of gladiator sandals on the table, their soles worn to near nothing. Retired, they whisper. Bad knee. You nod in silent solidarity. That night, back at the inn, something strange happens. Publius, perhaps softened by decent food or a surprisingly warm bath, rubs you down with oil. Not the good oil, mind you, just whatever was left over from dinner. But still, he wipes away the worst of the dust, tightens your twine, even plucks out that tiny thorn you've been carrying since day 3. It's not quite affection, but it's close. For the first time since leaving Antioch, you feel rested, but your time in Palmyra doesn't last. On the 3rd day, new orders arrive. Publius is being reassigned north toward the Euphrates to a border post where nothing ever happens except when it really, really does. The journey will be long, hard, and probably deeply unpleasant. You brace yourself. One last walk through the city. The sun filters through palm fronds. The sandals of merchants and scribes and sacred dancers drift past you, unaware. You pass a man offering dried apricots from a woven basket. Publius ignores him. You do not. A single apricot drops near your toe. You step on it. It squishes. You take that as a good omen. With Palmyra behind you and a long, uncertain road ahead, you shift against Publius's foot. The leather creaks. The twine holds. And though your soles are worn thin, your spirit, if sandals can have such a thing, feels oddly ready. The road from Palmyra to the Euphrates is not so much a road as it is a concept. Once you leave the shade of the city's towering palm groves, things quickly devolve into rock, thorn bushes, and the occasional vague suggestion of a track left behind by previous optimists. You're back in the rhythm now. Trudge, sweat, rest, repeat. But this time, there's a new variable. Mud. You hadn't counted on mud. The first few days are dry enough, but a sudden storm, brief, dramatic, and deeply personal, transforms the desert crust into a thick, gloppy stew. Publius slips once, then twice. The 3rd time, he faceplants. You're unceremoniously yanked off and beaten against a rock in a futile attempt to clear out the gunk. You go back on slightly squishier and somehow colder. Still, you keep moving. What choice do you have? At night, there are fewer fires, fewer jokes. The men are tense. Publius starts muttering about raids, although you're not sure if that's a real threat or just a convenient excuse for his foul mood. His toenails are now long enough to be considered minor weapons. You try not to judge, but they're starting to catch on your stitching. You pass a shrine one afternoon, just a pile of stones, really, with a few offerings scattered at its base. Someone's left a small bronze coin and a crushed fig. Publius pauses just long enough to spit and whisper something about Fortuna. You would bow if you had knees. There's a small village nestled beside a spring where you stop for 2 nights. It's one of those blink-and-you-miss-it places, all low mud brick walls and doorways covered in woven reed mats. Children stare at the soldiers. Goats stare at everyone. You rest against a cracked courtyard wall while Publius barters with a woman selling eggs and dubious cheese. She eyes you with professional distaste. You should resolve those, she mutters. Publius ignores her. You seethe. The next morning, a young boy sneaks up behind you and gives your heel a gentle poke. You try to look intimidating, but you are fundamentally a sandal. He giggles and runs off. Historians still argue whether small desert settlements like this one were truly integrated into the larger Roman network or merely tolerated by it. Judging by how little Publius tips the egg woman, you're going to guess the latter. And then, just when you think you've gotten used to the routine again, bam! River crossing. The Euphrates isn't particularly wide at this stretch, but it is swift, cold and filled with pebbles that seem personally designed to sneak under your soul and lodge there like tiny, sharp regrets. You're removed and tied to a saddlebag while Publius wades in. His curses echo off the water. You hang there, damp and indignant, watching a fish flicker past with the smug indifference of someone who has never had to be tied to a sweating soldier's belt. Once across, you're reattached. Badly. The straps bite. You sag. A new pebble joins the party, nestling in under your heel like it owns the place. There's no time to fix it. You trudge on. The terrain flattens as you approach the border post. Low hills, dusty scrub, and the occasional startled lizard. Publius mumbles about how this place is a punishment detail. The fort, when it comes into view, is every bit as welcoming as a sunburn. Stone walls, board guards, and a smell that suggests the latrines are in a long-term dispute with gravity. Your first day at the outpost is uneventful. Publius is assigned to gate duty. You mostly just stand, and shift your weight, and stand some more. Occasionally, someone spits near you. You are unamused, but then things get interesting. That evening, a merchant caravan arrives, dusty, loud, and full of surprises. Among them, a woman with painted brows and a voice like crushed velvet. She sells rare oils and is wearing what might be the most elaborate sandals you've ever seen. Silver-trimmed, toe-looped, bejeweled monstrosities that jingle softly as she walks. You watch her approach. You are, to be honest, a little smitten. She pauses near Publius, who, in a miracle of sudden charm, straightens up and tries not to look like someone whose best friend is a shoe. The woman glances down, then raises an eyebrow. "Those have seen better days," she says, her voice amused. Publius looks vaguely offended. You, however, feel something akin to pride. Later that night, as she sits under the stars and sings in a language you don't know, one of her assistants, barefoot and uninterested, trips over your strap while Publius naps. You're kicked, jostled, and left slightly skewed. You sigh, if a sandal can sigh. Still her scent lingers in the leather for days, saffron, rose, and something like pine smoke. You keep that with you as Publius returns to his gate. Your routine settles in. Shift changes, patrols, the occasional dispute with a goat herder whose goats have very strong opinions about fences. Your straps grow brittle from sun and sweat. A crack opens near the toe. You ignore it. One night, as a sandstorm approaches from the east, Publius huddles in a stone alcove and mutters something that sounds like a prayer. You're removed and placed beneath his folded cloak, an act of either care or habit, you're not sure. The wind howls. Grit gets into everything. When morning comes, half the fort is buried, and your left strap has twisted into a hard knot. But you're still here, still wrapped around this irritable Roman's foot, still catching the world under your soles, still trudging forward, because that's what sandals do. The order comes at dawn, carried by a courier with mud on his tunic and an unfortunate wheeze. Publius is to transfer again, this time further west toward a mesa. It's another dusty town with an oversized temple and undersized appreciation for paperwork. Naturally, Publius is thrilled. You, on the other hand, are too busy mourning the loss of a good sandal flirtation. The merchant woman with the silver sandals is long gone, vanished down the road in a swirl of jingles and camel breath. All you have now is a new pebble lodged firmly under your right arch. Romance is dead. Packing is swift and sloppy. Publius has developed a habit of tying your straps tighter than strictly necessary as if that might make the miles go faster. It does not. But at least you're dry, mostly intact, and still blessedly attached to the right foot. The left sandal, your sibling, has been ominously flopping for days. You worry it may not last the journey. The route to a mesa cuts through scrubland, pocked with the stumps of old trees and wide stretches of sun-hardened dirt. The sun is merciless. Your leather creaks. Occasionally, a lizard darts across your path as if to mock your speed. You pass a group of traveling musicians at one point, their sandals stitched with dyed scraps of linen. They are blistered but cheerful, singing songs about stolen sheep and ill-fated lovers. One of them has a tambourine strapped to his hip, which rattles with every step. It's both oddly charming and deeply annoying. Publius, naturally, ignores them entirely. That night, your group camps near an abandoned way station, crumbling walls, a half-collapsed roof, and graffiti that includes a very poorly drawn goat. Publius sets you down with a grunt and inspects your seams in the firelight. He prods at your worn heel, sighs, mumbles, "One more trip, old friends," as if you're the one dragging him across Syria. It's oddly touching, until he uses a piece of dried jerky to scrape a bit of grime off your soul. You endure it with silent dignity. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers were issued footwear based on rank, region, or random supply luck. Judging by your battered state and mismatched stitching, you're voting for random. You may have started your life as a proud pair, but now you're a patchwork of repairs, sweat stains, and memories. On the 5th day, you cross paths with a small caravan of Nabatean traders. Their donkeys are festooned with colored tassels. Their sandals are slim, elegant things, looped with red twine and clearly designed for walking with style, not substance. One of them glances down at you and visibly winces. "You poor thing," he murmurs in Arabic. You don't speak it, but pity sounds the same in any language. The road narrows through a rocky pass. The air smells like cracked stone and roasted chickpeas. Publius trips once, cursing the pebbles, the sun, and possibly you. You pretend not to notice. Eventually, the walls of a mesa rise in the distance, whitewashed and sun-bleached, with prayer flags fluttering from the temple spire. Publius straightens his shoulders. He spits on his tunic and rubs it across his cheek, which accomplishes absolutely nothing. You enter the city in silence, your souls whispering across the cobbles. The city is a puzzle of side streets and shouting. Pomegranate sellers elbow for space with fishmongers. Someone is roasting something suspicious on a stick. A goat head leers at you from a market stall. Welcome to civilization. Publius reports to a local official, an oily man in a too-short toga who smells of rosewater and old figs. You wait outside, jammed against the sun-warmed stepstones, and trying not to look abandoned. A child runs by, steps on you, and keeps going. Later, you're dragged to a local inn. It's not the worst you've seen. There's a mat to lie on and a shallow basin of water for Publius's feet. You are dunked unceremoniously into the water. It is not refreshing. At dinner, a fellow soldier mentions a rumor. The governor might be recalled to Rome. Publius perks up. Maybe, just maybe, he'll get a new posting, something cleaner, cushier. Alexandria, perhaps. Or even Gaul, if he's desperate. You snort quietly. Gaul? You'd last 5 minutes in those damp forests. But the thought of new places, new roads, it's strangely invigorating. You've walked through deserts and markets, shrines, and storm-battered posts. You've carried secrets in your stitching and sand in every seam. You're tired, yes, but you're still here. As the moon rises over a mesa and the street's quiet, Publius lies back on his cot. One foot dangles lazily off the edge, you curled around his heel like an old dog. The night air smells of jasmine and dust. You creak softly as he shifts. Sleep comes slow and steady. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, the road calls again. The road out of a mesa is a polite lie. It starts out promising, well-paved, lined with short fig trees, and blessedly flat. You almost dare to hope, but within 2 days, the stones thin out, the figs give way to dust, and you find yourself again marching through endless waves of dry grass and shoulder-high weeds that seem deeply committed to making your life worse. Publius has received new orders. His cohort is headed north, toward Antioch. The rumor is a parade, or maybe a punishment, depending on who you ask. You're not sure which sounds more tiring. Either way, your souls are not thrilled. By now your stitching is less sturdy Roman engineering and more patchy hope and dried sweat. The right strap flaps. The left heel has a crack so deep it whistles in a breeze. You are no longer a sandal. You are a survivor. You've seen sheep get better treatment. Speaking of which, on day 3, you're kicked by one. It's not the sheep's fault, really. A shepherd is herding his flock along a particularly narrow track. Publius misjudges the space. A ewe takes offense. The rest is a blur of wool, hooves, and a sharp thwack to your side. You're left dusty, offended, and slightly more crooked than before. As you limp into a riverside village that evening, a local cobbler glances down and actually gasps. "I could fix those," he says, voice full of misplaced confidence. Publius laughs. They've made it this far. And that, apparently, is the end of the conversation. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers replaced their sandals regularly or wore them into oblivion. Judging by the look on that cobbler's face, you are the dictionary definition of oblivion. That night, Publius drinks wine with another soldier and talks about home. Gaul again. His mother, who once threw a sandal at his head with terrifying accuracy. You twitch at the mention. There's laughter, there's coughing, there's snoring, and then, halfway through the night, there's a raid. It's over before it really begins. Just a few shouts, a toppled cart, some smoke. No one dies, but several donkeys are now emotionally unavailable. You're trampled in the scuffle, briefly stepped on by a panicked man with one boot and one bare foot. The indignity is palpable. By morning, Publius has a bruise, a limp, and renewed bitterness about frontier life. You have 2 new scratches and a clump of donkey hair stuck to your strap. The road continues. As you climb into the foothills, the air cools. The trees shift. Less palm, more pine. The path narrows and winds. One wrong step could mean a twisted ankle, or worse, a snapped strap. You whisper encouragement to yourself. You've made it through worse. Like that one time you were dipped in soup. Don't ask. On the 6th day, you reach a hilltop shrine dedicated to Mercury. Publius stops, lights a small oil lamp, and mumbles a prayer. For speed, probably, or safety, or maybe he's just hoping for a new pair of shoes. Nearby, an old man is selling dried figs and honey cakes. Publius buys one of each. He drops a sticky crumb into your toe. You accept this offering with quiet grace. Further along the ridge, you encounter a detachment of cavalry. Their sandals are almost absurdly pristine. Thick leather, brass studs. One of them even has a tassel. A tassel! You'd scoff if your cracked soul could. Still, there's something to admire in how they move. graceful, confident, absolutely oblivious to blisters. Publius watches them go with something between jealousy and indigestion. The path turns steep. Your heel drags. Every step feels like chewing on pebbles with your face, but you endure. One foot forward, then the other. Then, occasionally, a moment to lie flop to the side while Publius catches his breath and mutters about hills. At night, you hear wolves in the distance. Publius presses his back to a tree, sword in hand. You curl quietly around his foot and listen to the crackling fire. The wolves never come close, but you all sleep with one eye open. By the time you spot the walls of Antioch, gleaming pale under the morning sun, you are no longer a sandal. You are a legend. You are a threadbare, dust-covered, utterly exhausted relic of ambition and animal hide. The city teems. The noise is a living thing. Markets, temples, donkeys, priests, sellers of pickled fish, and children running barefoot and sticky with dates. You are buffeted from every side. Someone spills honey. Someone else trips over you and mutters something unrepeatable in Greek. Publius grumbles his way through the gate inspection and is waved into the barracks. Inside, the officer barely looks up. You're late. Got kicked by a sheep? The officer nods. Acceptable excuse. You're dismissed to a corner of the barracks, surrounded by other soldiers who all look varying shades of dusty and displeased. You're peeled off with the usual grunt and tossed near the wall. You land toe down, facing a broken shield and a helmet that seems to be growing moss. It's not glamorous, but it's quiet, and you get the distinct sense you're not done yet. The barracks in Antioch are a curious mix of old Roman discipline and local chaos. You find yourself lying beneath the foot of Publius once more, but now there's a strange rhythm to the place. The clink of armor, the muffled laughter of men playing dice, and the occasional bellow from the mess hall where someone is undoubtedly burning dinner again. You realize you've spent more time in the company of leather and sweat than you ever expected. Publius wakes late, cussing softly. His sandals, your twin pair, are in worse shape than ever. The left one is threatening to fall apart entirely. The straps barely cling on like overworked gym socks. You brace yourself for the inevitable patch job. The day drags by in a slow shuffle of drills and inspections. The officers parade about in gleaming boots, casting approving or disapproving glances. Publius's cohort prepares for a parade to celebrate some local festival you couldn't care less about. Marching in formation, no less. You brace for blister season. During a break, a fellow soldier approaches. He's younger, with an irritatingly clean pair of sandals, and offers to show Publius a cobbler in the marketplace who specializes in miraculous repairs. Publius looks skeptical, but desperate enough to listen. Market day in Antioch is something else. Stalls burst with spices, dried fruits, and odd trinkets that smell faintly of regret. The cobbler's shop is tiny and smells strongly of leather, sweat, and something vaguely floral. You're inspected like a prized beast. The cobbler pokes and prods, mutters something about Roma. The cobbler finishes with a flourish. You are now, if not exactly new, at least whole again. New straps, stronger stitching, and a slightly fanciful pattern near the toes. Publius admires the work, and you try not to wince at the tightness. Historians still argue whether soldiers' sandals were ever considered fashionable or if they were always strictly utilitarian. You now know the answer, a little bit of both. The parade comes soon after. Publius is ordered to lead his cohort in the city's main square. You crunch and creak underfoot as the soldiers march past cheering crowds. The sun is bright, the dust rises, and you feel every pebble and groove in the cobblestones. Afterward, the city settles back to its usual hum. Publius treats you to a rare luxury, a soak in olive oil mixed with herbs. The sensation is strange, but oddly soothing. You can feel the leather soften, the straps relax. You might even say you feel pampered. As night falls, you and Publius sit outside the barracks watching the stars. The city's lights twinkle below like scattered fireflies. The air cools. Somewhere nearby, a street musician plays a gentle tune on a lyre. You close your metaphorical eyes and imagine what it might be like to simply rest forever. But of course, you don't. Tomorrow the road calls again. The morning breaks soft over Antioch, spilling golden light across the worn stones and bustling streets. You awaken beneath Publius's feet, now feeling just a bit more supple after last night's oil bath. You almost feel like you could dance, though don't worry, that would be a very short and painful dance. Orders come swiftly. The cohort is to head west toward the coast, to a place called Seleucia Pieria, a bustling port city with salty air and the constant hum of ships creaking in their moorings. The promise of sea breezes feels like a fresh hope for your battered straps. Packing up is a blur of hurried steps and grumbles. Publius laces you tight, tighter than ever, as if the straps might hold memories and miles both together. You wonder if he's nervous about the journey, the sea, or maybe just how long his sandals will last before they fall apart completely. The road to Seleucia winds down through olive groves and sun-dappled fields. The scent of crushed leaves and ripe fruit lingers in the air. Occasionally, you hear the distant bleating of goats, a sound that now holds less menace than the infamous sheep kick in the hills. As you descend, the landscape shifts from dry scrub to lush greenery. The path grows muddier after a sudden rain, a rare treat that leaves your leather damp and cold, a sensation you find oddly refreshing. The sun warms the moisture quickly, coaxing up the scent of wet earth and pine needles. Traveling with the cohort means early mornings and late nights, but also curious moments. A soldier tells tales of sea monsters lurking near the harbor, half fish, half nightmare. Publius snorts, but you note the flicker of unease in his eyes. Historians still argue whether these stories were mere sailors' tales or rooted in real ancient sightings. You trudge past ruined villas and fallen columns, the ghosts of past grandeur pressing close. One particularly dilapidated estate has an overgrown garden where wild roses tangle with vines. Publius pauses briefly, perhaps imagining a softer life amid the thorns. By the fourth day, the scent of salt and seaweed grows stronger. You cross a narrow causeway that snakes across the water, waves lapping gently on either side. The air tastes of brine and possibility. At last, the port city of Seleucia Pieria unfolds before you, a maze of docks, warehouses, and shouting merchants. Ships fly banners from distant lands. The creak of rigging and cries of gulls form a noisy welcome. Publius navigates the crowded streets, trying to avoid sticky spills and over-enthusiastic street cats. You glimpse sailors from far-flung places, their sandals and shoes telling silent stories of distant shores. One man wears sandals woven from palm leaves, fragile and fleeting, much like a breeze. The cohort is quartered near the docks. Publius drops you by a fire, and you feel the soothing warmth seep into your cracked leather. Nearby, Fishermen mend nets and children chase each other, bare feet slapping the stones. As the sun dips low, the scent of grilled fish and freshly baked bread fills the air. Publius shares a meal with a local trader, dates soaked in honey, spiced olives, and strong bitter wine. He offers you a taste by way of a smear of honey on your worn toe strap. It's sticky, sweet, and strangely comforting. That night, waves lap against the wooden piers, and a gentle breeze whispers through the rigging. Publius lies back, tired but content, and you rest against his heel, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breath. The sea promises new horizons, and for a brief moment you imagine drifting endlessly on salty waves instead of cracked paths. But tomorrow, the morning at Seleucia Pieria dawned soft and misty, the harbor wrapped in a gentle fog that muffles the usual clamor of ships and merchants. You feel the cool dampness seep into your leather, a slight chill that wakes you up better than any rude shove. Publius wakes too, groaning softly about the stubborn fog and the dampness creeping into his clothes. He tightens your straps, murmuring something about making it through one more day without a disaster. A modest goal, but one you're on board for. The cohort's orders are clear. Secure the supply lines along the coastal roads, making sure merchant caravans pass safely between the port and inland cities. You set off, a slow procession winding through sun-dappled olive groves and patches of wild thyme that scent the air with a faint herbal sweetness. The road is uneven, patches of cobblestone interrupted by dirt and the occasional stubborn root. Your soles protest each step, but you are far from the only thing feeling the wear. Publius's trousers are patched in more places than you can count, and his mood matches your own mixture of stubbornness and exhaustion. Along the way, you encounter farmers tending their fields, their hands rough but faces kind. A woman waves, balancing a basket of freshly picked figs on her head. The figs smell rich, sweet, and a little wild, promising a taste of the Mediterranean sun. Publius pauses briefly at a small shrine dedicated to Fortuna, the goddess of luck. He tosses a coin, a small battered denarius, into the offering bowl. Historians still argue whether soldiers placed such offerings out of genuine faith or more as a superstitious ritual to mask their nerves. Either way, the gesture feels sincere. The afternoon sun grows warmer. You trudge alongside a shallow stream where children splash and laugh, their bare feet quicksilver in the cool water. Publius watches, a rare smile flickering across his face, though he quickly masks it with a grunt. You start to notice odd things along the roadside. Small piles of smooth pebbles arranged in peculiar patterns, bits of cloth tied to branches, and faded symbols scratched into tree bark. Locals call them apotropaic marks, meant to ward off bad luck or evil spirits. You're not sure if they help, but they do add a certain mysterious charm to the journey. By the fifth day, the coast is a shimmering blue ribbon on the horizon. The scent of salt mingles with the earth and herbs. You reach a small fishing village tucked between rocky cliffs, its whitewashed houses gleaming in the sun. Publius is welcomed warmly by the fishermen, who offer fresh bread, salted fish, and a strange drink made from fermented grapes and herbs. He shares some with you, a cautious dab on your leather strap that leaves you tasting oddly of rosemary and honey. That night, the stars come out clear and bright, reflecting in the calm sea below. You and Publius sit by the fire, the crackling flames casting flickering shadows, The sound of waves and distant laughter blends into a lullaby, and for a moment the road seems less harsh. You think back to the miles behind you, the hills, the cities, the sheep kicks and oil baths. Every scratch, every patch, every step has brought you here. Tomorrow will bring more steps, more stories, and more wear. But tonight, you rest. The dawn breaks over the fishing village like a soft sigh, pink and gentle, promising a day less taxing than the last. You wake beneath Publius's foot, your leather a little stiffer after the night's chill, but holding firm, thanks to that rosemary-infused honey patch. You admit it has a peculiar charm, though you're still not sure honey belongs on sandals. Today's orders have you heading inland again, this time following a narrow mountain pass rumored to be both treacherous and breathtaking. Publius grumbles about treacherous, but can't hide a spark of excitement. You suspect he's more drawn to the promise of fresh air and new scenery than the dangers ahead. The trail begins with a gentle climb, the air fresh with pine, and the faint tang of wild herbs crushed beneath your worn soles. Each step is a careful negotiation with loose stones and hidden roots, demanding your full attention. The sounds of the village fade behind you, replaced by birdsong and the distant rush of a waterfall. As you ascend, you pass an old shepherd leaning on a crooked staff, his flock grazing lazily nearby. He offers a nod and a smile, the kind that says, "You're nearly halfway there, keep going." You savor the brief moment of kindness, imagining the stories those wrinkles could tell. About halfway up, you reach a small shrine built into the rock face, simple, with faded frescoes and offerings of small coins and wildflowers. Publius pauses, whispering a quiet prayer to the mountain gods, or perhaps just hoping the path remains kind. Historians still argue whether these shrines were primarily religious or served as practical waypoints for travelers. Either way, their quiet presence feels like a welcome pause. The trail narrows as you climb higher, the valley opening below in a patchwork of fields and forests. The wind picks up, cool and persistent, tugging at your straps and testing your stitching. You brace yourself, gripping every stitch as if it were a lifeline. Near the summit, a sudden rain shower drenches the path, turning it slippery and treacherous. You cling to the wet stones, trying not to slip or slide. Publius mutters about muddy shoes and the perfect time to break a sandal, but somehow you hold together. The rain passes as quickly as it came, leaving behind sparkling droplets clinging to pine needles and wildflowers. The scent of wet earth and pine is intoxicating, a reminder that even hardship carries its own beauty. At the top, the view is breathtaking, a sweeping panorama of mountains rolling into the distance, rivers threading like silver ribbons through valleys, and clouds drifting lazily below your perch. You and Publius take a long, quiet moment to drink it in. The hardships of the road fade, replaced by the simple wonder of the world stretched out beneath you. Then it's back down the mountain, each step careful and deliberate. The trail is rough but manageable, and your repaired straps hold firm, carrying you steadily toward the next adventure. You wonder what stories await at the journey's end. Whatever they are, you know you'll face them one step at a time. You descend from the mountain pass, the air warming as you approach the foothills and the more cultivated lands beyond. The scent shifts from pine and wet earth to the heavier sun-warmed aroma of vineyards and freshly tilled soil. Publius's gait eases. though your soles feel the rough cobbles of a small rural settlement beneath you, a welcome change from the rocky trails. The village sprawls lazily along a dusty main street, where farmers barter over baskets of grapes in woven baskets, and children chase after stray chickens with gleeful shouts. You hear the faint clatter of pottery being shaped and dried, the low murmur of voices blending into a peaceful hum. Publius stops at a modest stall where a wizened old woman sells fresh bread and jars of honey infused with local herbs. She eyes your worn leather with a knowing smile, commenting in a voice rough as gravel. "Those sandals have seen much road, haven't they?" Publius nods, smiling back, almost proud. You're treated to a brief rest, straddling the rough stones as Publius enjoys the warmth of the midday sun. You stretch your worn straps, thankful for the brief respite. The village elders speak of the recent arrival of a traveling healer, one who specializes in treating foot ailments, something Publius is more than eager to hear about. The healer's remedies, mixing herbs, oils, and strange poultices, offer a curious blend of science and superstition. Historians still argue about the true effectiveness of such treatments, but the stories of healed feet and renewed stamina persist. As the healer gently massages and applies salves to Publius's tired feet, you feel the odd sensation of being part of a living story, where tradition and necessity blend in quiet harmony. Publius chuckles softly, joking about how you'd prefer a spa day if you could only talk. Later, the village hosts a modest festival celebrating the grape harvest, with music, dancing, and shared meals. The sounds drift faintly as Publius and you prepare to move on, but the warmth lingers. You savor the soft leather scent mingling with the aroma of roasted figs and spiced wine. You notice the villagers' sandals and shoes. Some are simple, woven reeds, others sturdier leather, but none quite as worn and well-traveled as you. It strikes you that every pair tells a story, every sole bears a memory. The road ahead winds toward more cities, more hills, more untold tales. You brace yourself for the miles to come, each step a quiet testament to endurance and companionship. The sun sinks low, casting long shadows as you and Publius press onward, your journey far from over. The road out of the village curves gently through rolling hills dotted with wild flowers and scattered olive trees, their silvery leaves whispering in the afternoon breeze. You feel the rhythm of the journey settle back into a familiar pattern, the steady crunch of your soles against the gravel, the swish of leather straps rubbing against worn skin. Publius tightens your laces just enough to remind you who's in charge without cutting off circulation. You appreciate the balance. Between the rough terrain and his careful hands, you're holding together better than you dared hope. As the sun dips lower, you cross a narrow wooden bridge spanning a sparkling river. The water below rushes over smooth stones, its cool murmur a brief relief from the dusty heat of the road. You catch the faint scent of wild mint and damp moss, grounding you in the present moment. Just past the bridge, you encounter a small roadside shrine dedicated to Mercury, messenger of the gods and protector of travelers. It's adorned with faded offerings, coins, scraps of cloth, and a tiny pair of carved wooden sandals. Publius stops, tracing the carvings with a finger, and mutters a quiet wish for safe passage. Historians still argue whether such shrines were more about genuine belief or the comfort of routine. The evening brings you to a bustling market town, alive with color and sound. Stalls overflow with vibrant fruits, fragrant spices, and handcrafted goods. The scent of fresh bread mingles with smoky wood fires and sweet perfumes. Publius navigates the crowds carefully, avoiding puddles and overenthusiastic vendors. He pauses to admire a display of dyed textiles, deep blues, rusty reds, and vibrant yellows, while you soak in the cacophony of languages and laughter. At a small workshop tucked between stalls, a cobbler repairs sandals with meticulous care. Publius watches closely as the craftsman skillfully replaces a worn sole with thick, supple leather, stitching each seam with patient precision. You feel a pang of envy. Such tender treatment is a rare luxury for travel-worn footwear. Later, you rest beneath the shade of an ancient olive tree, the cool breeze rustling the leaves above. Publius shares a meal of roasted lamb, olives, and sweet figs, occasionally smearing a bit of olive oil on your leather to keep you supple. Night falls softly, and the town's noises fade into a gentle lullaby of distant voices and flickering lanterns. You settle in, the leather straps warming comfortably against Publius's foot. As you drift toward rest, you think of all the roads traveled and those yet ahead. The journey may be long, but with each step you grow more a part of the story. The dawn stretches lazily over the market town, the sky painted in soft pastels as you and Publius prepare to leave the comforting bustle behind. Your leather feels a little softer from the olive oil treatment, a small mercy on this endless trek. Today's path takes you toward a dense forest that seems to hum with hidden life. The air grows cooler and damper as you enter the shaded canopy, the sun filtering through leaves in a slow dance of light and shadow. The scent of pine resin and damp earth is thick, grounding you with every step. The forest floor is soft beneath your soles, carpeted with fallen needles and moss that cushions each step like nature's own mattress. Occasionally, Publius halts to listen, his gaze sharp for any signs of wildlife or danger. You can't help but imagine how a pair of sandals might fare in a forest full of roots and hidden stones, not as well as sturdy boots, you think wryly. As you walk, you pass strange fungi clinging to tree trunks, bright orange and velvet textured, and clusters of berries, some sweet, others suspiciously bitter. Publius pops a few into his mouth with a curious grimace, and you're reminded that even the simplest journey includes moments of discovery. Along the way, you encounter an old hermit living in a crude shelter made from branches and leaves. He eyes your battered leather with a mixture of amusement and respect, sharing tales of the forest spirits said to guard the woods. He offers a curious mix of advice and riddles, reminding Publius to listen to the trees, for they hold the secrets of the earth. Historians still argue whether such forest legends were primarily spiritual beliefs or practical warnings to travelers. Either way, they add a layer of mystery to the already enchanting woods. The hermit gives Publius a small charm carved from bone, meant to protect travelers on their journey. Publius ties it carefully to your laces, and you feel oddly honored to carry this token of goodwill. As afternoon wanes, the forest begins to thin, and you find yourself on a gentle slope overlooking a serene lake. The water's surface is glassy, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Publius sits quietly, dipping a hand into the cool water while you rest beside him, the steady rhythm of lapping waves a soothing soundtrack. You notice a small boat tied to a wooden dock, its oars resting idly inside. Publius jokes about taking a break from walking and sailing across the lake, But you both know the journey isn't over yet. The sun sinks low as you set up camp nearby, the forest now a quiet cocoon around you. The crackle of the fire and the scent of pine smoke mingle with the distant call of night birds. You settle against Publius's foot, ready to rest and recharge for the miles ahead. The dawn light seeps softly through the trees, casting long golden beams across your worn leather. The forest is quiet, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of a bird greeting the new day. You feel rested, but aware of the miles that still stretch ahead. Publius rises slowly, stretching with a groan that suggests muscles complaining more than usual. You, of course, remain loyal and steady, though you can feel the toll of constant wear, each crease and scratch a badge of survival. The day's route winds around the lake's edge, the path flanked by wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. The scent of damp earth and blooming lavender fills the air, a subtle reminder of nature's quiet resilience. As you journey, you pass a series of ancient stone markers, weathered pillars etched with faded inscriptions. Publius stops to trace the carvings, murmuring about their significance. These markers, historians still argue, may have served as boundary stones or sacred waypoints, their true purpose lost in the passage of time. Along the way, you glimpse small animals darting through the underbrush, rabbits with twitching noses, colorful songbirds flitting between branches, and the occasional glimpse of a cautious deer watching from afar. The forest feels alive and watchful, a gentle reminder that you're part of a larger world moving in quiet harmony. Near midday, the trail opens into a sunlit clearing where farmers tend to a small field of grain. The golden stalks sway in the breeze, promising a harvest yet to come. Publius pauses to greet the farmers, sharing a nod and a smile that speak of mutual respect among those who labor on the land. You notice a curious device among their tools, a wooden contraption designed to thresh grain more efficiently. It strikes you how such inventions quietly change the rhythms of daily life, easing burdens one small step at a time. As the afternoon stretches on, the path leads upward again, a slow climb toward a rocky ridge that promises a breathtaking view. Each step is heavier now, the sun warm and insistent, but you carry on, the steady pulse of movement, a meditation. At the ridge's summit, you pause to take in the sweeping panorama, a tapestry of forests, fields, and distant mountains fading into the haze. The world feels vast and timeless, your journey just a thread woven into its endless fabric. The descent begins, gentle but unrelenting, winding down toward a small settlement nestled in the valley below. You can hear the distant sounds of laughter and music, a hint of welcome after so many miles on the road. You and Publius share a quiet moment of anticipation. The journey's end is near, but the stories carried in your worn leather are far from over. The final stretch of your journey unfolds under a sky brushed with the soft pinks and purples of early evening. The valley below welcomes you with the warm glow of lanterns flickering to life and the gentle hum of voices drifting through the air. You feel a mix of relief and quiet pride. After all the miles, all the wear and tear, here you are. Publius's footsteps slow as you approach the village square, where townsfolk gather to share stories, laughter, and the promise of a good meal. You sense the comfortable familiarity of home, even if it's not your own. Your leather feels the smooth cobbles beneath it, worn and shaped perfectly to the contours of Publius's foot, each scar and crevice a memory stitched into your very fibers. You think back to the rosemary honey patch that first saved you from failure, to the shrines and forest charms that guarded your path, to the mountain passes and rivers crossed. Historians still argue whether Roman sandals were primarily practical footwear or symbols of identity and status. But you've come to see them as something far richer, a companion, a storyteller, and a witness to a long, slow journey. As the village's festivities swell around you, you settle in for a moment of rest. The smells of roasted meat and fresh bread mingle with the laughter of children chasing one another and the soft strumming of a lyre. Publius loosens your straps just enough to breathe, and you sigh in quiet contentment. You are more than a pair of sandals now. You are a repository of history, carrying the weight of countless steps and quiet adventures. And though the journey has reached this pause, you know the road will call again, as it always does. The soft glow of the evening deepens, stars beginning to twinkle overhead. You rest easy, your leather warmed by a fire and the gentle company of those around you. The long journey may be over for now, but the stories you carry will keep moving forward, one gentle step at a time. As the night settles around you, feel your breath slow and your thoughts drift softly like the fading embers of a campfire. The journey of one pair of Roman sandals has carried you through stone, river, mountain, and forest, through quiet villages and lively markets, each step a whisper from the past, each scuff and stitch a testament to endurance and quiet adventure. You can rest now, knowing the world's stories are never truly finished. They simply wait for the next traveler, the next worn leather, to carry them onward. Let the softness of the night cradle you as you drift into dreams, your mind wandering the ancient roads and sunlit hills, wrapped in calm and gentle light. You find yourself slipping into new leather straps, the familiar creak replaced by a slightly different rhythm. Your journey continues, now beneath the foot of a young merchant named Marcellus, setting off from the city's busy port to traverse ancient trade routes. The air here smells of salts, fish, and the promise of distant lands. Quite a change from the dusty village you left behind. Marcellus moves with purpose, his steps brisk but measured, negotiating the bustling crowd of sailors, traders, and street vendors. You sense his excitement mixed with a hint of nervousness. These roads are no walk in the Forum. The market streets pulse with life, merchants hawking spices from the east, colorful silks shimmering in the sunlight, and the distant clang of metal from the blacksmith's forge. Your soles press against cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of traffic, each one a silent witness to countless stories. As you move beyond the city gates, the landscape opens to wide plains dotted with grazing sheep and occasional stone way stations. The heat is rising, and Marcellus pauses to adjust your straps, adding an extra layer of goat leather for protection against the abrasive dust. Here, historians still argue whether the silk routes were truly roads or more of a network of connected paths and caravan stops. Either way, you feel the weight of history beneath your feet. Along the way, Marcellus trades quick smiles and bartered goods with fellow travelers, wine for dried figs, bronze trinkets for fresh water. You carry these small exchanges quietly, the leather softening just enough to absorb the rhythms of commerce and camaraderie. One evening, The scent of roasting lamb and warm bread drifts through the campfire smoke, mingling with the crackle of flames and the soft murmur of shared stories. Marcellus taps your soul thoughtfully, joking about how you're the real trade secret, keeping him one step ahead of trouble. As night falls, you rest beneath a sky dusted with stars, the constellations unfamiliar but beautiful. The journey ahead promises more challenges, more new landscapes, and the steady, reassuring companionship of worn leather and steadfast steps. The sun climbs high as you and Marcellus press onward, the wide plains gradually giving way to the vast, sun-baked expanse of desert. The heat shimmers in the distance, a restless mirage that seems to dance just beyond reach. The once familiar feel of firm earth beneath your soles softens into a mix of coarse sand and scattered stones, challenging your every step. Marcellus wraps a cloth around his head, shading his face from the harsh glare, while you, the trusty Sandals, bear the brunt of grit and dust. Each grain works its way into your stitches and straps, testing the strength of your well-worn leather. The sun bakes down relentlessly, and you can almost feel the heat seeping through to the foot you protect. You trudge along an ancient caravan trail, marked by weathered cairns and the occasional half-buried pottery shard, remnants of travelers long past. Historians still argue whether these desert routes were primarily trade arteries or spiritual pilgrimages, but whatever their origin, they pulse with stories. Occasionally, a desert wind picks up, swirling sand into soft whirlwinds that catch you off guard, whispering secrets of the arid lands. Marcellus tightens your straps to keep you secure, muttering about the fickle nature of desert travel and the stubbornness required to endure it. One evening, as the sky melts into shades of orange and purple, you reach a sparse oasis. Palm trees lean gently over clear pools, and the air hums with the faint sounds of music and laughter. Traders and nomads gather here to rest, sharing water, food, and tales from far-flung lands. Marcellus joins the circle, exchanging stories while you rest quietly, feeling the coolness of damp earth beneath your soles. A local craftsman offers to repair your worn straps, working with surprising delicacy to restore your strength. There's a strange comfort in the ritual, a reminder that even the most weathered travelers find moments of renewal. The night deepens, filled with soft singing and the flicker of firelight. You feel for a moment like more than just a pair of sandals. The dawn breaks with a gentle pink hue as you set off from the oasis, feeling slightly lighter after the craftsman's careful repairs. Marcellus's steps are steady, the fresh leather scent mingling with the desert air. Ahead lies a destination of warmth and color, a desert festival unlike any you've encountered before. You arrive at a bustling oasis settlement, where tints of vivid reds, blues, and yellows flutter like flags in the gentle breeze. The air is fragrant with spices, cardamom, cinnamon, and cumin, blending with the earthy scent of sand and date palms. You step onto soft rugs and worn wooden boards laid out for merchants and performers. The settlement is alive with music, the gentle strumming of a lute, the rhythmic beat of hand drums, and the lilting call of a flute. Children dart between stalls, their laughter light and infectious, while elders sit weaving stories into the fabric of the evening. Marcellus greets familiar faces and navigates the maze of stalls, exchanging coins for fragrant oils and hand-woven textiles. You The ever-present sandals take in the tactile world beneath your soles, woven mats, polished stone, and the occasional discarded date seed. The festival offers more than commerce. It's a cultural tapestry woven from diverse peoples who have converged here from far-flung corners of the ancient world. Historians still debate how much these desert gatherings influence the spread of ideas versus just goods, but it's clear the oasis is a crossroads of stories and traditions. As night deepens, firelight casts dancing shadows on tent walls. Marcellus joins a circle of travelers sharing tales of distant lands and daring exploits. You listen in your quiet way, feeling the rhythm of voices mingling with the desert's soft night sounds. You rest beneath the stars, warmed by the gentle chatter and the sense that journeys like sandals carry more than just feet. They carry memories, connections, and the endless curiosity of the human heart. The morning sun filters softly through the palm fronds as you leave the oasis behind, stepping onto a road that soon brings you to one of the marvels of Roman engineering, an ancient stone bridge stretching gracefully over a broad river. The smooth cobblestones beneath your soul gleam faintly in the sunlight, worn by countless travelers who've crossed before. Marcellus takes a moment to admire the bridge's sturdy arches and intricate masonry, a reminder that even in the vast wilds, human ingenuity builds pathways to connection. You feel the steady, reliable support beneath you, a welcome contrast to the shifting sands and uneven forest floors of earlier days. Crossing the bridge, you hear the soft splash of water against stone, and the gentle hum of life along the river banks, fishermen casting nets, children skipping stones, and farmers tending lush fields nourished by the flowing water. The air carries the scent of fresh herbs and blooming flowers, a peaceful interlude on your long journey. As you follow the winding river path, you encounter a lively village preparing for a seasonal festival. Bright banners flutter from wooden poles, and the sound of singing spills into the streets. You notice unusual customs, a dance involving woven reeds, and a feast centered around freshly caught fish and wild greens. Historians still argue whether such local traditions were absorbed into Roman culture or remained proudly distinct. Marcellus greets the villagers warmly, trading stories and goods. You catch the faint sound of a lyre and the rhythmic tapping of a wooden drum, the music weaving a gentle spell that makes even the slowest step feel lighter. Later, you cross a series of smaller bridges and ford shallow streams, the cool water splashing against your worn soles. Each crossing brings new textures and sensations, the slippery stones, the cool rush of current, reminding you that even the most engineered paths still bow to nature's whims. As dusk settles, you find shelter near a quiet riverside glade, the water's soft murmur a lullaby. You settle into the familiar rhythm of rest and renewal, your leather creaking softly as the night embraces you once more. The morning arrives slow and soft, a delicate wash of pale gold filtering through the leaves as you and Marcellus prepare for a pause in your long travels. The soles beneath you feel weary, the leather stretched and softened by countless miles and weather's whims. It's time for repair, a quiet ritual as old as the roads themselves. You settle in the artisan's workshop, the scent of tanned hides and beeswax filling the air. Skilled hands work carefully, stitching frayed straps and reinforcing worn soles with supple new leather. Each careful stitch is a gentle promise of more miles yet to come, a small act of renewal that echoes centuries of tradition. Marcellus watches thoughtfully, sharing a quiet joke about your stubbornness, how you've outlasted so many rivals and storms. You feel pride swell quietly in your seams. These repairs aren't just practical. They're a renewal of purpose, a chance to carry new stories forward. The craftsman speaks of his trade with soft reverence, describing how Roman shoemakers, or calceolarii, were valued members of their communities, blending function with artistry. Historians still debate just how widespread such craftsmanship was, but there's no doubt their work was essential to life on the move. Outside, the afternoon sun warms the workshop's dusty windows, and the sounds of village life drift in. Children's laughter, the clatter of carts, and the distant call of a flute. You rest quietly, feeling the smooth new leather slowly soften, the quiet hum of restoration wrapping around you. Marcellus straps you back on, the familiar creak and snug fit a comforting rhythm. You rise again, ready to carry him further over hills, through valleys, and down ancient roads. The journey may slow here, but it never truly ends. As evening falls, you walk beneath a sky heavy with stars, each step a whisper of resilience and connection. Your journey is a long one, a quiet thread woven through history, a companion to all who walk the road ahead.